Hi guys, welcome to Piece of Code and welcome to this video. So in this video we're going to continue our Java OCA series. So in the previous episode, which is episode number 31, we had completed our chapter number 4 of this series. So in this particular video we are going to start with chapter number 5 of this series. So what you're going to learn in this particular chapter, so this chapter is going to be particularly focusing on class design. So we had learned a little bit about class design in our subsequent chapters, in our previous chapters, but in this particular chapter we're going to delve in depth, like what is class and how do we design, like if you want to create an application, what class considerations you should have in your mind, or if you're solving some problems, what you should do, all the basic stuff and everything. So in this chapter we're going to learn what is class inheritance, what are abstract classes, what are interfaces, of course with a lot of examples as well, what is polymorphism, and then we're going to end it off with the summary and exam questions, which is like a specialty of this particular channel. Okay, so let's see what is the agenda for this particular video. So we're going to start with some inheritance basics, then we're going to see how do we extend a class, and then we're going to see what is the object class. Obviously we're going to couple it up with a lot of examples as well, so you don't have to worry about that. This will be a theoretical class. Okay, so let us talk about this class inheritance, guys. So how does inheritance works with a class? So it's just a phenomenon where one class can inherit from another class. Now we have talked about inheritance a couple of times, so you would have a very simple idea, like when there is a parent class, right, and there is a child class. So if the child inherits from the parent, right, then it also inherits the properties of the parent class. And how the properties are inherited, what are the factors which will affect the properties of the parent being inherited into the child, all of these things we're going to discuss in depth, in detail. You don't have to worry about it right now, but inheritance is a simple fashion where a child inherits from a parent. That's it. Now you should keep in mind that Java supports single inheritance. What does single inheritance means? It just means that one child should inherit only one parent, right? Now Java supports multiple level inheritance, but it does not support multiple inheritance. What is the difference? So you have a parent P1 and it is being inherited by another parent P2, and it is being inherited by a child C, right? So this is a multiple level inheritance. In here the properties of P1 are inherited in P2, properties of P2 are inherited in child, which is C. This phenomenon is fine, but this phenomenon is not possible. This is multiple inheritance. It means that there is one child which is known as dog. It is inheriting from multiple parents, which is animal, pet and friendly. This is not possible. Java does not support this, and this can be a question in the exam as well as in the interview. They may ask you like what is this and why Java does not support this. Then you can give a reason. There is some problem known as a diamond problem, which basically happens in C++ because C++ supports multiple inheritance. So it goes, it's a pretty simple problem, where this kind of structure happens. So when there is one parent P1, it has two children C1 and C2, then C3 inherits from both C1 and C2. So there is a problem occurs, right? Then in the case of variables being inherited and methods being inherited. Now I'm not going to dig deeper into this diamond problem because that is out of scope for this particular series, but in case someone asks you why Java doesn't support, you can just give it a reason that yes, in other programming languages like C++, which supports multiple inheritance, the diamond problem occurs, and so that problem shouldn't occur in Java. That's why it doesn't support this thing. Now there are a lot of ways to prevent this diamond problem. You can hear a lot of keywords known as virtual methods, something like this. These are all the techniques through which you can avoid the diamond problem in C++. You can have a look at it in the internet. So this is the structure that may form if you allow multiple inheritance and you don't have any backup plan to prevent it. Okay, that's fine. So you see, in single inheritance it's pretty simple. One parent can have multiple children obviously, but one child can only inherit from one parent, as you can see, right? It can be in a multiple levels, but keep in mind that you cannot perform multiple inheritance. Multiple level inheritance and multiple inheritance are both different things. Don't get confused between the both. Multiple level means it's a multiple levels of inheritance, but multiple means that one child is inheriting from multiple parents, which is not possible. All right, I hope that is making sense. I'm giving a lot of thoughts over here because I want you guys to remember that this is a very, very big problem if you allow multiple inheritance. Okay, that's fine. So let us move on to the extends keyword. So basically now you'll ask me, how do we inherit some class in Java, right? We need some kind of keyword or some mechanism, right? And in Java it supports the keyword that supports inheritance is known as the extends keyword. Let us have a look at the structure of the or you can say how do we extend a class using the extends keyword. So in Java particularly, you extend a class by adding the parent class name in the definition using the extends keyword, as you can see in this particular diagram. And there are also certain other things that we can use as part of inheriting a class, but the only thing that you remember that the extends keyword, if you want to inherit a class, the extends keyword, it's the only mandatory thing to use to extend a class. Other things like public, abstract, these two keywords are not mandatory to use to extend a class, because obviously it makes sense. Public is an access specifier and abstract is another keyword. We're going to learn about abstract classes later on. It is not related to inheritance. Obviously the concept comes in inheritance, but if you just want to extend a class, you don't have to have any relation to it. Okay, just keep in mind the only keyword that is necessary to extend a class is the extend keyword. See, so it's pretty simple. You just say class name and extends. You use the extends keyword over here, and this is the parent class name. Okay, I hope that is making sense, guys. All right. Okay, guys, so let us see a very easy example about this inheritance that we just learned, right? And we're going to see some practical examples of how you can apply this inheritance concepts in this programming world, right? Let us start off with a very simple thing. So we're going to create a package over here, and let us name that package as maybe, let's say, inheritance, to keep things simple. Okay, so we have inheritance over here, this package, and in this package I'm going to create a new class, and I'm going to name that class as for example animal, right? So I'm going to start with a very generic class which is known as animal, right? And it will take some time to create. Let's wait. I don't know why it's taking so much time. Okay, so our animal class is ready. So what we are going to do now is we're going to create one variable over here, and we're going to do this thing. So I'm going to say private int age, right? I'm going to create one instance variable which is a private variable, right, over here. And applying the concept of encapsulation, I have already explained to you what is encapsulation, right? We're going to create a getter method and we're going to create a setter method. So I'm just going to say public int, sorry, so let's create the getter method first, setter method first. So public void set age, and I'm going to accept an age, and I'm just going to say this dot age equals to age. I hope you guys have learned about this keyword that we have learned. I had explained to you in our previous classes, so go and have a look at it. Then I'm gonna say public int get age, right? And I'm gonna just say, you know what, return age, or I'm just gonna say this dot age, right? So that's it. So for the animal class, let's keep it like this. Now we're going to create another class over here, and you're going to compare the logical comparison between these two classes, right? And you're going to understand how inheritance works in this case. So I'm going to go inside this inheritance package. I'm going to create a new class over here, and I'm gonna name this class as something known as, for example, a lion or a tiger, whatever you wanna do, you can create. So just understand in this way, right? A lion is an animal, right? And then a tiger is also an animal. A dog is also an animal. So I can say that we can extend a lion or a tiger or a dog from an animal because they all fall under this one roof which is known as an animal. And I remember in my previous sessions I have talked about is a relationship, something known as a is a relationship. So is a relationship is a test which will prove if one class can be extended from another class. Just ask yourself, if you are confused that okay, this class will be extending that class or something like that, just ask yourself this question: lion is an animal, that's true, right? So it can be extended from an animal. Now nobody is stopping you to inherit a lion class from a person class, because syntactically you are correct, you can extend any class from anyone. But from a logical point of view, from an architectural point of view, does it make sense to extend a lion from a person? No, right? Because there is no relationship between these two people. Now a person can have a lion, or a person has a lion as a pet. It's a wild animal, but still people like to keep it as pets or something, right? So that's a has a relationship. Now the person can have an animal or has an animal which is a lion, but a lion is not a person, so we cannot extend from that. You can extend from that, but it doesn't make any sense to extend from that. So always test for a is a relationship, and that should be the judgmental factor, I can say, in determining if your inheritance will work or not. So yeah, that makes sense. So lion is an animal, so I'm just going to say extends animal. Okay. Now whenever I was talking about inheritance, I talked that if something is extending something, then all the properties of the parent class comes inside the child class, right? Makes sense. So I'm gonna just say, I'm gonna create a method over here. You know what, let us also create a variable over here, private string name. So that will be the name of the lion, because that is specific to the lion, I would say. Now I'm gonna create a method over here. I'm gonna say public void roar, right? And I'm just gonna keep a sysout method over here, and I'm gonna say the lion with name, and I'm gonna just say this dot name. And if you remember, we had an age variable in our animal class. If you remember, if I go back over here, just a minute, I don't know why my ID is acting weird. Okay, so we had an age this variable over here. So I also want to display the age of the lion in this case, because it's also an animal, so it also has an age. So this age should get inherited inside my lion class. That's what the main concept of inheritance is, right? The parent class properties comes inside the child class. That makes sense. So I'm going to say the lion with the name, this dot name, with age, I'm just going to say plus this dot age plus is going to roar, and then end it up. That's it. So that is fine, but if you see over here, this dot age, let me just go to a next line. Sorry. Okay. This dot age, when I try to fetch this dot age, it shows an error over here which says the field animal dot age is not visible. Now it says that it is present in the animal class, but it is not visible to the lion class, it is saying. Why is that? If you remember, in our previous chapters we have learnt about access specifiers or access modifiers, whatever you say, and there I had talked about a rule that if some variable is marked as private, then it is only accessible in the same class. Now in this case, this age variable is marked as private, so it is only accessible in the same class, which is the animal class. Now you would ask, like, what then, how would this property get inherited in the child class? Is there any rule which determines that, okay, this access specifier is associated with this variable and this variable will get inherited in the child class? Yes, that is correct. There are certain rules that you need to remember which dictates like which properties of the parent gets inherited in the child, and one of the rule is that if a variable is or a method, whatever, or a class member is marked as private, it will not get it will so here is the thing, it will not get inherited. That is not the correct thing. It will get inherited, but it is not visible. That is the main thing you need to remember. Okay, because it is private to animal, so it is not visible in the lion class. Okay, so you would say, how do I access this age variable then? We use the concept of encapsulation, but so in this case this method, which is the get age, is public. And if you remember that all the things that you mark as public access specifier is visible everywhere, inside the class, outside the class, outside the package, anywhere that you want, it is completely accessible. So in this case, if I, instead of directly accessing the age which is private, if I just say get age, then you see that this is very fine, and this is going to work. Nothing wrong with it, right? It makes sense. So it compiles, and this is what we want. Okay, so we are done with this method, this roar method. Now let's test this out. Okay, so I'm going to create a new class over here, and I'm just going to name it as test class, something like that. It will have a public static void main method. So I'm just gonna go over there, and here let's create a simple object of animal equals to new animal. Now we're gonna say animal dot set age, because if you remember, set age is a public method which in the animal class. Okay, so we have the lion method. Okay, so instead of creating the object of animal, we're gonna create the object of lion, right? Not gonna create the object of animal right now. So I'm gonna say lion equals to new lion. I'm gonna say lion dot set age, because see, this set age method is a public method, as I've told you. So this public method gets inherited inside the lion class. So the set age method is already there in the lion class. So I'm gonna say it's lion dot set age, and the age I'm gonna set is 8 years old, and I'm gonna say lion. Okay, for the name, we do not have a setter method, so let's create a setter method for this name. So public, very simple setter method, void set name, and I'm gonna say string name, and over here I'm just gonna say this dot name equals to name. Right, cool. If I go back to the test class, I'm just gonna say over here lion dot set name, and I'm gonna set the name as max, right? And then we're gonna call the method lion dot roar, and let's see. I'm gonna just run the class right now. Okay, let's run it like this. Run as Java application. Okay, so the lion with the name max with age 8 is going to roar, right? So it's a very simple thing that we tested, that where we created one animal class and we created one lion class, where the lion extends animal because lion is a animal according to the is a relationship. And then we saw that the private variables do not get inherited. It means that it is not visible in the child class, but the public ones gets inherited and is visible. And we were able to like create a simple method and test it out. Now let us talk about some other, access specifiers like protected and default access specifier. Okay, so let us do one thing. Let us go to our animal class and let us create a variable with a default access specifier. So I'm gonna say int age, and I'm just gonna say string type. What is the type of animal I want to say? And if I go inside my lion class and I'm gonna create another method, for example, just for some practical purposes, I'm gonna say public void display, and I'm gonna say sysout the type of animal lion is, and I'm just gonna say plus this dot type. So as you can see that if I mark something as default, right, default access specifier, then it is accessible inside the child class. I mean, it gets inherited and it's visible inside the child class without any issues. And other thing about the default access specifier, we already discussed about it, is that in the same package, right, it can also be accessed using the object even if you don't use inheritance, right? It is accessible inside the same package in every class, right? That's the thing about default access specifier. And so by default, if your child class is inheriting something which has a default access specifier, so it is obviously visible inside the child class. Okay, that makes sense. Now let us test something else out. I'm gonna say I'll create another variable inside this animal class. It will be a protected variable. So I'm gonna say protected. I'm gonna say what else I can say? Protected boolean is I'm gonna say terrestrial. So which I don't know, the spelling can also be wrong. So which basically are land animals. So I'm gonna say I don't know that much about wildlife, so I beg your pardon if I do some mistakes. But protected boolean is terrestrial. And if I try to access this inside this lion class, which is the child class of animal, and I'm gonna add some more lines over here. I'm gonna say plus is terrestrial, and I'm gonna just say plus this dot is terrestrial. So if you see that this protected access specifier is also being accessed inside the child class. Now you will ask me, sir, then what is the difference between this default access specifier and protected access specifier? Both are getting inherited in the same in the child class without any issues, and both are accessible in the same package also. Any class inside the same package will be able to access any protected or any default access specifier marked variable or a method, right? So whatever variable or method you mark as default or as protected, it is accessible inside the same package. Keep that in mind. Now let's test this out in a different way. So I'm going to create another package over here. I'm going to just say another package. I'm going to say diff package, something like that. I'm just going to name it as diff package or as a different package. So I'm going to click on finish over here. I'm going to create a new class over here, new class, and I'm going to name it as dog, right? So a dog is also an animal, right? So just keep in mind that our lion class is in the inheritance package and our dog class is in the diff package, right? I hope that is making sense. So I'm going to say public class dog extends animal, right? And let's keep it very simple. Okay, let us create a very simple method, public void display, and I'm going to create a sysout method over here and try to access all whatever variables are there inside the animal method. So if I go to this animal class, so there are 3 variables over here. First one is the age variable. Let us see if you are able to access the age variable. Now that is making sense, that will not be accessible because it is a private variable, but let's try this dot age. It is not accessible. As you can see, it is not visible, right? So but we can use this dot get age. So this is not accessible. Now let us try to access this dot what was the next thing, this dot type. Let us try to access that. So this dot type. Okay, now if you see over here, this type is also not accessible. It says the field animal dot type is not accessible because it is a default access specifier, and as I've told you that the default access specifier, irrespective of if it is a child class or not, even if it is a child class, the default access specifier is only accessible inside the same package. But as this dog class, even though it is the child class of animal, it is present in a different package, this default access specifier is not visible inside this dog class, right? Let us try this out. Let us try to access this dot is terrestrial. Now as you can see that this variable is accessible. So what is the difference between the default and the protected access specifier now? The difference is that the default access specifier is only accessible inside the package even if the child is present outside the package. But in the case of the protected access specifier, it is accessible by every child class even if it is inside the package or outside the package. But obviously if some other class is there which is not a child outside the package, the protected will also not get accessible. That you should keep in mind. If that is your requirement, then better to use the public. Instead of making things complicated, directly use the public, right? I hope that is making sense. Okay, so let's comment this out. So the last thing that is remaining to discuss in this particular lecture is the object class. Now what is the object class? You will say, sir, you just talked about objects a lot, creating objects and everything. What is the object class? Let us talk about the object class for a little bit. So if you see this object class relation, this diagram over here, as you can see that whatever class you create in Java extends the object class, right? Now you think that you might be wondering, none of the classes I have written so far extend this object class, which is java.lang.object. So how do all classes inherit from it? So the answer is that the compiler has been automatically inserting code into any class that you write that doesn't extend a specific class. Like basically, if in this case, in the case of animal, so dog, it is extending from animal. So you are explicitly writing this extends class into this animal. So for this dog class, it will not extend from the object. Now you may ask me a question. So if the object class is not inherited in the dog class, is the object class, is dog not a child of the object class then? Now if you remember, in this particular lecture I talked about this multi-level inheritance, where you can be a child of, parent of parent of parent. Like the object class can be a grandfather, your great grandfather, your great 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 grandfather. Now in this case, the object class is the grandfather of dog class. How? So this dog extends from animal, and this animal, as there is no extends keyword associated with this animal class, by default it is extending from the object class. Now you may not believe me, but if I write this thing extends java.lang. Object, you see this makes sense. So this particular piece of code is being written by the compiler itself, right? I hope that is making sense. That's why there are certain methods of object that you can override, like the equals method and the hash code method and everything. But for now, let's not talk about method overriding and everything, but you will understand later on how it provides you some by default methods that you can override in your own class. But for now, just remember that object class is like the father of all classes in Java. So any class that you create in Java inherit from this object class. Even if you don't write this extends keyword, by default it inherits from it. Correct? I hope that is making sense. All right. Okay guys, so that's it for this lecture. We're gonna discuss a lot about constructors, method overriding, method overloading, and everything, method overloading, sorry, in our next class. Until then, have a nice day. Bye bye and take care.